Good good afternoon again, council. Everybody can hear me? Good. I'm going to call the meeting to order and we'll stand. Thank you. First of all, I want to welcome the viewing audience tonight, and I'm going to go right to Rob with the close meeting report. Go ahead, Rob.
Just looking to report an open session that council earlier this evening in closed session at a 4 o'clock meeting to discuss personal matters about identifiable individuals. And this was permissible under section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act. Further to discuss a proposed acquisition of land by the municipality as permitted by 239(2)C, and finally to discuss a proposed disposition of land by the municipality, again as allowed by section 239(2)C of the municipal. As a result of those discussions, I can report out into open session the following. Number one, that council gave direction to administration to disclose in open session the fact that the mayor will be sending a letter of acknowledgement in reply to the recent media release dated April 10th and issued by the Essex County Chinese Canadian Association. Secondly, council gave direction to administration to disclose in open session the fact that administration was asked to extend an invitation to the Greater Essex County District School Board to attend a future meeting of Essex Town Council to discuss the former Harrell High School property. And thirdly, council gave administration direction to disclose in public session this evening its attention to declare the properties known as First Street on Plan 1461 Colchester, Second Street on Plan 1461 Colchester, and that portion of Erie Drive on Plan 1461 being identified as property identification number 751880058. These properties collectively being unopened road allowances within the property commonly known as Caboto Park. And to that end, Mr. Mayor, if it's council's direction this evening to declare a surplus, we would need a motion from council to declare those properties as surplus to the needs of the municipality and that administration be directed further to bring back to council at the May 3rd regular council meeting a bylaw authorizing the sale of those properties by way of direct sale to the abutting landowners, being the current owners of the property, again, commonly known as Kobodo Park.
Thank you, Rob. At this point, then, I'll need a motion to declare this property surplus. So I'll need a counselor to make that motion. Counselor Bjorkman and Counselor Bowman. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And at this point, is there any conflict amongst council members here tonight? Seeing none, I'd like to take a minute here. Jason Pilon, you're there? Yes, you are. And I'd like to welcome and congratulate you, Jason. I've known you pretty well all my life. And I've known your family, your mom and dad, and we go back a long ways. So you were recently named the new Deputy Chief of Essex and Fire Rescue. So Jason has served as a firefighter in our community since 1997. And many of the community members will know him from the work in his fire prevention and public education. We all know that Jason's years of experience, education, and commitment to the town of Essex will continue to help make our community a safe place to live and do business. So once again, Jason, on behalf of council and myself, we congratulate you. And I know you'll do a good job. You do a good job recently, and so congratulations.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through your worship. I'd like to thank everyone for their kind words and messages I received. I'm extremely humbled, honored, and proud to hold the position, and I look forward to nothing but great things to come for our great team here at Essex Fire. Thank you.
On to adoption of the published agenda tonight. I'll need a mover, please. Councillor Verbeek and Councillor Guerin. All in favor? Carried. Hold on one sec. We do have a Rob to add something to the agenda.
Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. Oh, sorry. Just if I may, Mr. Mayor, there's just two items we're looking for council's consideration to add as part of the agenda for this evening as amended. Councillor Verbeek has provided notice of two notices of motion. We're looking to add that as 16.2.2 and 16.3 to the agenda, and those will be read by the clerk and presented later this evening. And then secondly, looking for council to amend to allow a verbal report by our Director of Community Services and Deputy CEO, Doug Sweet, so that Mr. Sweet can provide an update on the most recent COVID-19 matters, and we would be looking to add that as 9.1, our first report this evening, with the subsequent reports moved accordingly.
So, Councillor Verbeek.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And before we adopt, I'd like to, another amendment. I'm hoping to have correspondence 12.1.1.3, which consists of two letters pulled, and so that we can address them to be received and supported.
No.
They're from Amherstburg about universal paid sick days in Ontario.
Oh, that's not. Where's that on?
In correspondence 12.1.1.3, and there's two letters.
Okay, thank you.
From St. Catharines and the municipality of St. Catharines and Amherstburg.
Good. Okay, thank you, Councillor. We have that. Anything else? All in favor? It's carried. Adoption of the regular council meeting for April 6th. So I'll need a mover on that one. Deputy Mayor Malash and Councillor Guerin. Any questions on that one? All in favor? That one's carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under reports from administration as added to the amended agenda this evening, we have our Director of Community Services, Doug Sweet, here before council tonight to provide an update on COVID-19 in the town.
Go ahead, Doug. You're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just want to provide a public update in regards to the provincial announcement that came out last Friday, including the amendment over the weekend, in terms of what facilities are open or closed within the town of Essex. So at a high level, what is closed is the Colchester Harbor Marina, the beach, our sports fields, which are baseball diamonds, soccer fields, our tennis courts, basketball courts, skate parks, picnic sites, and pavilions. What is open, which we're including the recent amendment that came out on the weekend, all outdoor playgrounds, outdoor parks, green space, outdoor washrooms will open beginning May 1st. That's when we have staff on site to open, close, and maintain them. The Colchester Harbor boat ramp only. And just for council to recall, last year at the same time, same type of situation, we were in a lockdown. We did close the harbor. But with our boat ramp part of it, we did not open, but we realized there's other places that have standalone ramps or other places we're opening the ramps. So we use that model again, where we're closing the harbor, but opening just the ramp where people can access Lake Erie. Beginning May 1st, when staff are on site, the fee will be applied at that time, but the ramp is open at this point. All the benches in our parks and recreation areas are open. And we'll continue to offer virtual programming while our recreational facilities are closed. So it's a high level update. It's what's new that came out in terms of closures. So I'm not sure if council has any questions or clarification.
Councillor Guerin, you have a question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Sweet. Just a clarification, if you could please, on the playgrounds. Is it the equipment also accessible, or is it just a park for walking and such? And can people use the equipment?
Mr. Mayor, yes, the playground equipment is open.
So just to follow up to that, and I guess my question to administration and to council is, are we being irresponsible in leaving our parks open and full when other amenities, the government's asked us to shut other amenities down that are similar, that are also outdoor activities? I'd like to keep them open, but it has come into into light on social media that maybe the parks, the equipment maybe should be closed. So I just wanted to bring that up and see what my fellow councilors or what administration has to say in reply to that, because we do have some residents that are concerned about them being open when we're in a lockdown. It's kind of ironic where they're saying, well, we're going to stay at home. Actually, it's ironic that they're telling us stay home, only go out for things of necessity, and a park, I guess, is necessity for a lot of people. But I think the spread could be apparent there too if they're gathering in large groups and using the equipment and in close proximity. So I just want to put that out there and get some feedback. Thanks.
Councillor Guerin. Go ahead, Doug.
Just a quick comment back to Councillor Guerin in terms of his question. Based on past practice, what happened last year and what we noticed with playground equipment and splash pads when they were open, those are items that seem to be really self-policing. People kind of watch it themselves. Not saying that won't change, but that's kind of been the history with those that we noticed last year when they were open.
Councillor Bjorkman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you and to Councillor Guerin. Yeah, I think we're going basically by what the province, their edicts are, and they backed off on that because there was such a pushback from parents saying, we've got to get our kids out. We need to be outside. The weather's getting better. And the province said, all right, we're going to allow the parks and the playground equipment to be open to families. So that's not something that we're deciding on. The province has made that decision, and I believe it's needed. They've asked parents to be there, but to stay distant. Make sure keep your 6 feet apart. If you're getting too close, wear masks. But otherwise, let the kids get out and exercise.
Thank you, Councillor Bjorkman. And go ahead, Councillor Guerin.
Yeah, through you. And I agree to all those points. It's just when we try to, we've been pushing for over a year on other things to be open. And so I agree with the playgrounds, and I believe with the, it doesn't mean the province is getting it right in all cases, but we have people that have boats and the ramps are open, but they can't go to the dock and get in their boat, so to speak. So there's other things that just in golfers can't go on the golf course, 2-4 people every 500 yards. So it was brought to my attention. I thought in a public session, we should at least talk about it, but thanks. I appreciate it.
Councillor Guerin, if I can just add, I'm glad the province has reconsidered the parks and opening up the parks, because we all know, and we're all hearing it, mental illness is on the rise right now through this pandemic. It's really got to a lot of young people too. So I think it was a smart move on the province. And like Doug said, if we keep our distance, I think it's safe. And as far as the ramp being open, I'm very proud of that. And Councillor Bjorkman, if you seen yesterday, if that was an example, there had to be 70 boats out. So anyways, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Deputy CEO, Mr. Sweet, for the update. If something happens and the ramp does close, can you let council know as soon as possible? I'm hoping that the ramp stays open as well. People need this outlet, and I really hope the parks stay open as well. As a mom of little kids, it's our outlet every day for an hour. I'm actually taking them next week. I'm going to do a park tour. Like, being home with little kids doing homeschooling is one of the hardest things. And getting outside, sometimes our backyards are not, mine's not that exciting. So we rely on the park, and we have families in our community that live in apartments that, we're on screens all day doing schoolwork. And then at night, what else is there, right? So I know our parents last year, when we opened the splash pads, everybody was really responsible. So I'm hoping, everybody's responsible. And if people shouldn't be socializing with members outside their family anyway, really, right? So if little Johnny gets something at the park, he shouldn't be going to see grandma. So hopefully the vaccines roll out and, we get through this really fast, but we need to be outside, we need ramps, we need the parks open. And I'm a firm supporter of that.
Deputy Mayor Malash, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. I too would like to see the parks remain open. And if the province came along and all of a sudden decided to close the boat ramps, I wouldn't want to, or close boat ramps, I wouldn't, or open boat ramps, I should say, boat slips and allow people to go on the boat slips. I wouldn't want to say that we're not going to open the boat slips because they didn't open golfing. So I know there's a cutoff somewhere, whether it's logical or whether it's the right cutoff. I can't necessarily say it is, but if they're allowing the kids to play on the park grounds, I'm going to say that's better than what I thought it should be. So I'm not going to make the kids suffer in order to prove a point that I think there should be more open. I'm not willing to prove a point. So I'm hoping that the government will look at some of these other amenities and say that they are safe compared to what they're suggesting. But right now, that's where it is, and I'm not willing to say to the kids they can't play on the park ground in Essex. Thanks.
Councillor Bowman.
Yes, if I may, this is to Mr. Sweet. I know the town has a spray they use around in some of their facilities to sort of disinfect it. I was wondering if it was possible to use that same product to say maybe once a day or once every couple of days spray down the playground equipment. Is it feasible, or does it make sense?
Mr. Mayor, actually, ORFA, Ontario Recreation Facilities Association, last year recommended that does not happen, just because you can never maintain them to a standard that people expect. You may get out there once, you may not. And once you do it, someone could be playing on it. So the recommendation was not to disinfect.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug. Counselor Vandendolen, you were next. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, as well as the only member of council still recovering from the disease in question, I agree that the playground should be allowed to remain open, and the boat ramp. I think you have to trust people to take their own precautions. They know their own risk levels. Not every family has elderly, not every family has people with diabetes or obesity. So the people who do have to know the risks at this point, and it's up to them to protect those people. But not everyone fits into that category. And I'm glad to see the kids will still be allowed to play outside. Thank you.
I can tell you on the boat ramp part, you're not going to spread any disease out on the water. I can tell you that. And everybody knows I'm an avid fisherman. I'm out there quite a bit. And when I do go out, I'm by myself. I do not take anybody else with me unless my son that lives in a household. But I know it's taken place, and we got to follow the rules and we got to be careful. So I'm glad we're keeping the ramp open. And I'm glad the parks are open because just the stress on families alone with this disease that's out there, it gives them some relief, and the kids too. So thank you very much. Anybody else from council on this? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I need a motion to receive that report, please. Councillor Guerin and Councillor Bjorkman, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next report this evening is Economic Development 2021-05, Agri-Tourism Development Strategy. And this report and its recommendations is in conjunction with a presentation by Mr. Benson and Ms. Morrill from the Culinary Tourism Alliance. But first, Mr. Mayor, I believe we're turning it over to Nelson Severia, our Economic Development.
Thank you, Rob. Nelson, if you're ready, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to start off by saying a couple things, giving a brief introduction to the report and the attachments to the report as well. So Culinary Tourism Alliance is here today after I speak to give an overview of the Agri-Tourism Development Strategy. The few things I want to touch on beforehand, though, is just some background information to, I guess, the point where we are today. In the 2019-2022 Corporate Strategic Plan, Council has identified multiple action items. One being emphasizing the agricultural economy, two, developing a tourism strategy, and three, developing an agritourism strategy, or developing agritourism and ecotourism offerings. I'm happy to say that all three of those points are well on their way to being checked off as a result of this agritourism strategy. So back in September, we came back to council with a report to let them know that we were going to be redirecting funding from last year's tourism marketing, as well as an announcement that we received some funding from the provincial government through the Tourism and Economic Development Recovery Fund through the Ministry of Heritage, Sport and Tourism Culture Industries. So we received $25,000 from them. We also received some funding from Tourism Windsor, Essex, Pelee Island for the development of this strategy. So we started this back in January, took a lot of consultation. We had a virtual industry forum with stakeholders, including our local businesses, our farmers, our agritourism operators, stakeholders like Essex Region Conservation Authority, Tourism Windsor, Essex, Pelee Island, Essex County Federation of Agriculture. The list goes on. It was really intensive. We asked council for some information as well, and I'm sure some of you can recall answering some questions from the survey. So I'm not going to take much more of your time. I'm really going to throw it over to Culinary Tourism Alliance, and they're going to be able to give you an overview of the strategy. And what's going to happen is what's going to set us up for success in the future. All those action items throughout the strategy, short term, medium term, all linked back to really stimulating the local economy, creating more opportunities for agritourism operators, and really trying to intensify on-farm diversification. That's really going to help support that tourism industry here locally. So I'll hand it over to Trevor and Caroline at Culinary Tourism Alliance.
Thank you, Nelson. So Trevor and Caroline, if you're ready, go ahead.
Thank you, Nelson, Mr. Mayor, Council, Administration. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to share with you this evening. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that my home office is located in Ottawa, which is on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. And I'm grateful to all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples for their past and present contributions to the place that I'm privileged to call home. So as mentioned, my name is Trevor Jonas Benson. I'm the Vice President of Destination Development at the Culinary Tourism Alliance. I'm joined this evening by Caroline Morrow, our Senior Destination Development Officer. And our roles in the project were I was the project manager and Caroline was one of our key researchers. For those of you who are not aware of our organization, the Culinary Tourism Alliance, we're a non-for-profit industry organization based out of Toronto. Our mission is simple. It's to bridge the gap between the food and drink and tourism industries. And we have a vision that food tourism, including agritourism, is a meaningful contributor to local economies and destinations worldwide. Our work is fairly broad. We do work locally here in Ontario, but also with destinations around the world to make food and drink a key part of their value propositions, and through food tourism generally and agritourism more specifically. We have local membership with destination marketing organizations and regional tourism organizations across the province, as well as a local food certification program. And then I oversee our professional services division, or our consultancy, which we operate as a social enterprise for the organization. Caroline?
Hi, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Caroline Morrow. As Trevor mentioned, I am the Senior Destination Development Officer at the Culinary Tourism Alliance, and my home office is located on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee, specifically the Mississaugas of the Credit. In the professional services work that we do at the Culinary Tourism Alliance, our work ranges from culinary tourism experience development, research projects, strategy work, and product development in Ontario, Canada, and internationally. Through these projects, we have noticed that agritourism is taking on an increasingly important role. And this interest in agritourism has been amplified by the pandemic. So more and more Ontarians are looking for trips closer to home, and they're increasingly interested in learning where their food comes from. As a result, we've been working on a growing number of agritourism research and development projects, including at the national level. So growing agritourism was actually one of 5 key themes for capacity building workshops that we developed and delivered to industry across the country on behalf of the Tourism Industry Association of Canada over the last year and a half.
So for the next few minutes, we're going to be taking the opportunity to share with you a little bit of what's appended in the report that you received in today's agenda. We're going to be continuing to call out relevant page numbers throughout this presentation, but certainly encourage you to be paging through the report itself. So beginning with the introduction and speaking to what Nelson already shared, we had a timeline that began from January 21st to March 31st of this year. And we had very specific objectives for this project: to establish a shared understanding of the agritourism landscape, to uncover the agritourism development challenges and ways to address these, to identify strengths and opportunities for the destination, to shed light on potential actions for the immediate term, being 0 to 12 months, and the short term being 13 months to 12 years, or to 2 years, as well as looking at potential midterm actions. Our methodology was accelerated, but still had a breadth and diversity of methods. We did a background document review. We looked at market trends and demands research. We looked at the existing agritourism landscape, as well as engaged in community engagement through an industry forum, as mentioned, as well as through a questionnaire that was sent to Town of Essex Council members. After that, the aggregate data was analyzed. A SWOT was produced, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges table that all informed the development of the strategy.
There are a few key points that we just want to cover before we move on. So I'm talking now about the market research, which starts on page 9. So the first point is that agritourism is considered a subset of culinary tourism, but a subset that's focused more on the production side of food and drink. And we also want to acknowledge that there is no universal definition of agritourism, but for the purposes of this project, we focused on on-farm diversified uses. Next, we want to draw your attention to page 39. So this is the recommended action. So through the research process that Trevor outlined just now, 4 broad areas of opportunity for agritourism development in the town of Essex were identified. And these 4 areas of opportunity are to grow agritourism as a priority, to strengthen agritourism networks, to enhance the agritourism offer, and to attract visitors. Each area of opportunity also has specific actions associated with it. In total, there are 12 actions in the strategy to guide agritourism development in the town of Essex. These actions are designed to be as implementable as possible to ensure that implementation can move forward quickly and leverage the existing momentum around agritourism development.
So we're going to go over a bit of a high-level overview of the actions that fall into each of these areas of opportunity, with the first one beginning on page 39, being growing agritourism as a priority. So the first action is continuing to foster an enabling policy environment. And key to this is developing a shared understanding of agritourism amongst both officials as well as stakeholders. An important step is considering how agritourism is represented across diverse policy documents and establishing alignments where possible to support its prioritization. The second action in this area is building awareness around the rules and regulations related to agritourism development. It is important to build awareness around agritourism and relevant rules and regulations, such as building codes, zoning, health and safety, amongst Town of Essex staff, existing agritourism businesses, and prospective agritourism businesses. Industry will be more likely to incorporate agritourism into their offering and operations if they have a clear understanding of the permitted processes. The third action, and also within this area, is collecting stories on foodways relevant to agritourism. And when we say foodways, we're talking about the who, what, where, when, why, and how food is produced in a particular area. Foodways are the foundation of any agritourism development. And for the town of Essex to build an agritourism offering connected to its place is important that is based on the diverse cultures, traditions, and livelihoods of the community. So foodways should inform agritourism product development and add value to marketing campaigns.
The next area of opportunity is strengthening agritourism networks. So this is on page 40. And the fourth action, so that's foster networking at the operator level. Industry networking is a precursor to innovative product development and partnership, especially across business types. So for example, between a farm and a beverage producer, or between different types of businesses. And this is important groundwork to agritourism development. The next is use culinary tourism assets to drive traffic to agritourism businesses. So a key point is that many culinary tourists also have an interest in agritourism activities. So the town of Essex can leverage culinary tourism touchpoints like restaurants, farmers markets, retail stores, or attractions to drive traffic to agritourism businesses. The sixth action, which is also in this same area of opportunity, is to create an agritourism ambassador program. Ambassador programs can take many shapes, but most have a common goal, which is to drive traffic to local businesses. Both operator-facing and resident-facing ambassador programs can achieve this goal and help to encourage visitation to local businesses.
Within the third area of opportunity, which is enhancing the agritourism offer, we have 7 empowering businesses to improve their online presence. So this includes providing cross-promotional training, digital marketing resources, and webinars for agritourism operators, specifically farmers. And these can all help to ensure that the destination's agritourism products are incorporated into visitor itineraries. The eighth action is helping existing agritourism businesses enhance their current offering. So capacity building might involve the development of tools and resources, offering group trainings online or in person when we can, or through one-on-one business coaching. Specific skills will vary based on the business, but some possible topics include such things as experience development, storytelling, and partnerships. The third area of action within this opportunity is 9, encouraging more businesses to get involved in agritourism. So there's a need to support and inspire a wide range of prospective agritourism operators, including businesses that are introducing new products to market, such as world crops or value-added products. Creating a new municipal-wide grant program to assist agritourism operators with starting or expanding agritourism businesses in the town should be considered in the short term.
And finally, we have the last area of opportunity, which is attracting visitors. So this is on page 41. So the first action in this area of opportunity is to position Town of Essex as an agritourism destination. So located within driving distance of key markets in Detroit, Kitchener-Waterloo, London, GTA, and beyond, the Town of Essex is well positioned as a weekend destination for travelers looking to relax and enjoy a variety of on-farm local food and drink experiences. in the post-pandemic context, promoting the town as an alternative to similar destinations like the Niagara Rhine region, for example, with consistently high tourist numbers could have strong appeal for visitors. Action 11 is to celebrate points of differentiation. So a stronger awareness of the destination's unique food, drink, and other cultural assets is needed to set this agritourism destination apart from others in the region. So this includes a celebration of crops that thrive in the area's microclimate and highlighting features like the Lake Erie North Shore VQA appellation. And then Action 12 is to amplify the destination image through marketing partnerships. So the town's agritourism marketing efforts should be linked to those in the wider region to promote collaboration across organizations, including the Southwest Ontario Tourism Corporation, or RTO1, for example, or that could involve improving signage for agritourism businesses through the Tourism Windsor Essex Pelee Islands regional signage strategy, in partnership also with Essex County, as well as listing farms and wineries on the websites of Tourism Windsor Essex Pelee Island and other partners.
When it comes to implementation, which begins on page 45, recommended actions are mapped out over a 2-year timeline to assist staff with work planning. Implementation planning more specifically focused on actions for the first 12 months of the implementation period. And implementation planning included identifying when to begin each action, who will lead and support each action, the inputs required for implementation, the outputs expected from the process. Staff were provided with an implementation planning tool to support the work planning process, and this is very much an active and working document. So from our side at the Culinary Tourism Alliance, I have to say that we could be more thrilled to know that this important work is moving forward with leadership from development services and partners. It was an absolute pleasure working with Lori, Nelson, and Alex on this project. You have a really amazing and engaged staff and administration when it comes to agritourism development. This is not the case everywhere that we're working. And it's just a real pleasure to have engaged with you all in this important step towards agritourism growth. Thank you.
Presentation. It was a good presentation and a lot there. So I'm going to open it up to council. Is there any questions? Deputy Mayor Malash, go ahead.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, to the team here. Wow, this is a great presentation. I read it once and then I had to read it a second time because there's a lot of information in here and a lot to understand. So I think that it's going to give us a strong direction to help us get through this. After reading this, I realized how involved this really is. I didn't take it to be as involved as what it is, but now I have a better understanding of what's got to be accomplished here, and it's going to take some time and some effort and some money to be put behind it in order to make this a success. But I agree with you. We have an awesome staff, and with Lori and Nelson and Alex all involved in this, we all have confidence that this will be successful. So thank you for the presentation tonight. I did have one question about the wineries, how involved the wineries should be in this whole agri-tourism. So I know that they're already drawing tourism to that location, but how much do we want to start with that and build on that? I'm guessing is what we do.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And to answer your question or curiosity, it's definitely our recommendation to start with a strong foundation that is within the destination, being wineries and the Weno tourism kind of industry. It's absolutely a smart bet, and even including within the strategy, we recommend diversified kind of experiences within those wineries and those have had on farm experiences already.
Fantastic, and I did see that. We need to give the tourists that are coming there, if we really want to draw them strongly into the area, we have to give them other opportunities to be there. And once you build those other opportunities, then there'll be multiple reasons for them wanting to come there to that location. So again, thank you very much. Great report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Anybody else? Councillor Bjorkman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. To Trevor, Caroline, great report. I was happy to see where you put that, you just said that, agritourism doesn't really have a single definition, because I've been killing myself trying to figure out exactly what agritourism is ever since Mr. Silvera and I talked about it a long time ago. It's such a large term, but it was really nice to see the things you were focusing on. Our wineries, as the deputy mayor said, also like our apple orchards, we have a number of fruit orchards, the crops, the different things that we have. And I noticed a couple of times there was a lot of talk about pick your own areas. Like we used to have a great blueberry patch and an operator here in town, and we used to have a lot more pick your own apples. Have you noticed there's a trend that those things are going away? And is there something that others are doing that could help us bring that back? Because it's such a great family event. It's such a great way to get out in the fall. I just wondered if there's a trend there that you've noticed other places that these kinds of things are falling off.
Thank you, Councillor Bjorkman. And to your comment around the definition of agritourism, Carolyn and I both had the pleasure of being in Bolzano, Italy for the first World Congress on Agritourism, bit of a twist of the arm, being in the Dolomites for this important conference, but it brought together over 40 countries with that question in mind. Is there a universal definition? The answer was a whole no. There's not. It's to be defined by the communities that activate agritourism, and it can take many different shapes and forms. So it's absolutely to the town of Essex to define agritourism and manifest it in its own right. When it comes to UPICs and other types of immersive experiences, the trend is actually more towards hands-on multisensory experiences, anything where there's more touch points to what's being grown, produced, processed, who the people are behind the processes. So the more hands-on, kind of the more attractive it is to the agri-tourist or to those who are looking for more meaningful engagement with the culture of a place. So if anything, we'd be seeing more UPICs and more kind of on-farm experiences in the future. And we're seeing agritourism over the last 5 years really kind of on the up, and this is only going to be contextualized and strengthened by the pandemic and more local and then regional travel and ultimately domestic. So it's the thing. Most of us have been involved with agritourism, and we just simply know we're going to the pumpkin farm, we're going to the apple orchard. We never called it agritourism.
Great. So you're saying part of what we could do to encourage our operators is if they have an apple orchard, well, there's the picking of it, but then maybe there's making ciders, then there's making vinegars, and bringing people into that process and showing them how it works, opening up those barns and opening up those operations so people get a real feel for what's happening.
100%.
I would add that one of the trends we talk about specifically in the report is how visitors now are driven by learning. They want to feel transformed after they visit. So if there's an opportunity for them to leave with a new skill, whether it's pressing the apples themselves or a new recipe where they learned how they can use the apples, those sorts of things have a huge impact and really make a destination stand out.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And Mr. Silvera, great report. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from council? So once again, Trevor and Carolyn, good presentation and a lot there. So thank you very much for coming out tonight. Thank you. So at this point here, I'll need a motion to receive the presentation. Councillor Bowman and Councillor Bjorkman, and to move the recommendation also. So, okay, that's fine. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, folks, for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next report this evening is Economic Development 2021 Building Report and Development Overview for March 2021 for receipt for Council's information.
Have a mover on this report, please. Councillor Bowman. Seconder. Deputy Mayor Malash. Any questions on this one? No. All in favor? It's carried.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our next report is Economic Development 2021-04, Community Improvement Plan Update, Q1 2021, also for receipt this evening.
Once again, I need a mover on this one. Counselor Bondi and seconder, please. Counselor Guerin, any questions on this report? All in favor? Carry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our next report is Parks and Facilities 2021-02 for receipt, and that council approved the installation of menstrual dispensers and disposal containers at the Essex Center Sports Complex and the Harrow and Colchester South Complex for 1 year beginning in August 2021 as a pilot project to provide free access in Town of Essex recreation facilities.
Let's let the public know we brought this up last, I think was the last meeting, wasn't it? It was brought forward. So I'll need a mover on this one, please. Counselor Verbeek and a seconder, please. Counselor Bjorkman. Any discussion on this report? Counselor Bondi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm grateful this is here and I hope council supports it. So that being said, I would like a recorded vote on this because I do believe that this is an equality issue. It's not really, sometimes it's not always an affordability issue. Being a woman, sometimes it's a convenience issue. Stuff happens, right? Your friends borrow your last stuff you had in your purse and next thing you know, something happens and you're in a bathroom and you just need a little bit of help, right? You want to go shoot a couple more hoops and you can, or skate around the arena and you can't. And I'm glad that we're having this discussion tonight because I've read other school boards doing it, other municipalities. Like I Googled this and to get pictures for my website. And I was reading that other municipalities are doing this. So I'm glad that we are potentially leading the way locally and just making some inconveniences in being a woman just more convenient. So thank you, Mr. Sweet, Deputy CAO and Director of Community Services. And it's COVID, so I don't know if we're even going to really see how much this pilot project gets to take hold. So I would hope that, I know that we're beginning 1 year this August. I would like to see it, you know, if we're still in lockdown, which I hope we're not in lockdown, we can extend it reasonably and really give it a good go. I know it's a pilot project, but I'd really like to see it be a permanent project. Thank you.
Doug, I see you're there. Did you want to speak on this or no? No, okay. Anybody else on this one here? Okay, Councillor Bondi asked for a recorded vote. Go ahead, Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the motion as moved by Councillor Verbeek, seconded by Councillor Bjorkman with a requested vote by Councillor Bondi. On the motion that Community Services Report 2021-004 entitled Free Menstrual Products at Two Town Rec Facilities be received, and that council approved the installation of menstrual dispensers and disposal containers at the Essex Center Sports Complex and Harold Colchester South Complex for 1 year, beginning in August 2021 as a pilot project to provide free access in Town of Essex recreation facilities. On that motion, how do you vote, Councillor Bondi?
Support.
Councillor Vanderdolen?
Support.
Councillor Bowman?
Support.
Mayor Snively?
Support.
Deputy Mayor Malash?
Support.
Councillor Guerin?
Support.
Councillor Verbeek?
Support.
And Councillor Bjorkman?
Support.
Support. With a recorded vote of 7 in support, none opposed, the motion carries. Through you, Mr. Mayor, our next report this evening is Parks and Facilities 2021-03 refrigeration system at the Essex Center Sports Complex for receipt. That council approved the additional work of replacing 2 Bitzer compressors in 2021, and that council approved the addition of replacing 2 motor bearings while the compressors are being replaced. And finally, that council approved the addition of repairing the heat exchanger gaskets while the compressors and bearings are being replaced.
Thank you, Rob. I need a mover on this one, Counselor Bowman, and a seconder. Seconder on this one, Counselor Verbeek. Any questions on this one? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our next report this evening is Planning 2021-08, site plan control approval, 3900 North Malden Road for receipt, and that bylaw 2009 being a bylaw to authorize the entering into of a site plan control agreement. Receive 3 readings this evening and be finally executed and registered.
Need a mover on this one, Deputy Mayor Malash and Counselor Bowman. Any questions on this one here? All in favor? It's carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next report this evening is Planning 2021-09, official plan and zoning bylaw amendments to permit second dwelling unit policies and regulations for the town of Essex for receipt, and that bylaw number 2013 being a bylaw to amend the official plan for the town of Essex to permit second dwelling unit policies in detached structures on lands designated agricultural, receive all 3 readings and be approved. And finally, that council direct administration to prepare a zoning bylaw amendment with the regulations concerning dwelling units under Appendix B. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe our manager of planning services, Rita Jabor, will be looking to speak to this matter.
Rita, if you're there, go ahead. Go ahead, Rita.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. So this report is in follow-up to the special council meeting on second dwelling unit policies that was held on Tuesday, April 6th. What we're asking you to approve tonight is simply the bylaw to adopt the policy changes to the official plan to allow for second dwelling units in both detached structures and in the main dwelling in residential and in agricultural areas. Under the report, you will see a chart on page 5 and 6 that outlines a summary of the concerns, questions, suggestions that were brought up by council and by administration at the public meeting on April 6th. I want to specifically note that Councillor Bjorkman and yourself, Mr. Mayor, brought up the question about detached structures on undersized lots. So we've researched that topic and we've addressed it in the report. So in summary, we do have a special section in our zoning bylaw that really focuses on lots that are undersized and when you can build a dwelling or an accessory structure without having to go for any special permission, such as a minor variance. So what we're suggesting in instances for detached structures on undersized lots is that we simply amend that section of our zoning bylaw to state that in instances where a lot is undersized for that zoning district. So for example, in a zoning district that allows for a 50 by 100 foot lot as a minimum, a lot may be 40 by 100 feet, which we see a lot of the times, especially in the Lakeshore district. A second dwelling unit is really only permitted in the main dwelling and not in a detached structure. So we are going to implement that in the zoning bylaw, and that's proposed under Appendix B for the next council meeting. But in terms of tonight, we are simply looking for adoption of the bylaw to amend the official plan and for your direction on the draft zoning bylaw regulations under Appendix B. And we'll come back at the next meeting, hopefully with that zoning bylaw for your adoption and finally for implementation.
Glad you made that change. That was the only concern I had. So any questions to Rita? Go ahead, Councillor Bondi, you were first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Bohr. I did get a question asking if mobile homes and module homes qualify. And I know they're 2 different things. So if we could go over those, and then I have one more question after that, please.
Certainly. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bondi, mobile homes and modular homes, so long as they're on a foundation, they would be permitted as a second dwelling unit considered in a detached structure.
No, they won't.
Okay, I'm told no, they won't. Not no, but they would have to be on a permanent structure. Sorry, I'm the chief building official here.
Mobile homes are not mobile.
Yes, okay, so
Who's
long
echoing
as
there?
the structure is on a so long as the dwelling is on a permanent structure, But a mobile home is permitted in a mobile home park and therefore not in a residential district or an agricultural district. If you look at Appendix B, the draft bylaw actually states that a second dwelling unit is not permitted in a mobile home district.
Okay, so,
Thanks, Rita.
yeah.
Go ahead. That was a good echo in the back.
Yeah, I have one more. This is all questions I got after the public meeting and I didn't have time to send them in by email. What if someone has a small home and they want to build a bigger home and then use the small home for their family? Would that be permissible? Say they have a tiny home already, a tiny-ish home, and they want to build this second home as a bigger home.
So through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Bondi again, yes. So they would just simply have to meet with the regulations, the proposed regulations. So 1 story if you're, within that required yard, for example.
Okay, thank you.
I think Deputy Mayor Malash, you are next, then Councillor Verbeek.
Thank you, through your worship. To Rita, I've got a question here on Lansdowne, or what we want to change. So the second dwelling units are permitted within the main dwelling and agricultural zones. Is that what we want to change it to? And then in lands designated residential, second dwelling units are permitted within a dwelling or in a building ancillary to the main building. Is that what we're changing to?
So through you, Mr. Chair, currently, we don't allow second dwelling units in a main dwelling or in a detached structure in the agricultural area. So we're changing that to allow it in both in the agricultural area. And we also are changing it to allow it in a detached structure in the residential district. So currently we permit them in the main, in the residential, but not in the detached. So we're amending the official plan to allow for both options in both the agricultural and the residential. And we're amending the zoning bylaw to allow it in a detached structure in the residential and in both the main, detached, and the agricultural.
But in agricultural, you'd be able to have a detached ancillary building changed into a second dwelling unit as well?
That's correct.
Okay, that was the question I had. I also had about the mobile homes, and so that question was answered. Thank you.
Who was next? Councillor Verbeek, did you have a question?
I do, and I'm sorry I misunderstood. I'd like clarity on the answer about the mobile home, because I was specifically asked just going into the meeting, and the answer ended up being a little bit unclear in the end to me. If there's a foundation, it will count as a second dwelling, or just no mobile unit?
No, yeah. So through you, Mr. Chair, no mobile homes. If the second dwelling unit is located in a detached structure, it has to be a permanent structure on a foundation.
Thank you.
Rita. Anybody else? Councillor Bjorkman, go ahead.
Good evening, Rita. Thanks for the report again and putting in there about our concern with the smaller lots and how we'll go about doing that. In the presentation that we had at the open house, I don't have it up here right now, but on page 30 of that, it showed the rear yard building envelope. So if you had the house, when the house is set, you could have a 2-story building that you could build in very close to the building. And if you're going to build in the rear yard setback, we would only allow that to be 1 story back there. Now, my concern is, and still is, I've called a couple of my friends, talked to some family, and I said, what I want you to do, we got a nice, decent sized backyard. So take your lawn chair, go out in the backyard and sit 20 feet from your back fence. And while you're sitting there, now look to your left and right, pretend you're looking at another house and another house, and across your back fence, there's another house. How do you like that? And every one of them didn't like it. So everybody, we are looking to expand our housing and to make sure that our families have an opportunity. But I'm still a little concerned with where on the property we're going to allow people to build. So I'm just wondering, is there So we're going to do this restriction that if it's an undersized lot, we're not going to allow for a secondary building, but they'd be able to like build onto the back and have an attached structure as their secondary dwelling. So I'm just wondering how that works. I've got a couple of questions from people that are saying, I don't really want to sit out in my backyard and be surrounded by 3 more houses. So what is the minimum setback that will be from the back fence to where you can build?
So through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Bjorkman, it would be 4 feet from a rear lot line or a side lot line. And like you stated, the building, if it's in that required yard, and if you're 4 feet from a property line, you definitely are, then it's limited to 1 story. Now, if that second dwelling unit was located within the actual main dwelling, they'd have to comply with the setback that we have for a main dwelling from that rear lot line, and that would be 25 feet.
Okay, so my concern is people who live in a subdivision of good sized properties could potentially have a house 4 feet from their fence on 3 sides.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Okay, so I don't like that. And like I said, the people I talked to, they weren't too happy with the thought of having somebody living on the other side of the fence like that all the way around. So I like the idea of the second dwelling. I like the idea of it being up in the building envelope where the other building is. But I'm not in favor of locating houses around our backyards. So I want to bring that forward. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but that is a concern for me.
Well, thank you, Counselor. And Counselor, I'm in agreement with you too. And you're right. If you live in a subdivision and you got a house built behind your home and you have neighbors sitting out in their backyard and looking to the left or right, and there's a house there and a house there, I agree 100%. So I have a big concern with that too. So if you're going to build a second home, I think the lot size should be big enough on both sides of the house, east side and west side of the house, to build another home there. So, and keep it right even with the existing home. That's the way I look at it. And I got to agree with Councillor Bjorkman, because I strongly believe we're going to run into a big, huge problem here if we start building homes in the backyards of subdivisions. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll listen to Councillor Guerin now. Councillor Guerin. Councillor Guerin, unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Rita and to Steve's point, I agree. I'm in a subdivision. I think it's going to be a concern, but I guess what we have to understand though is whether it's a house or a garage. Right now, people are able to put garages in their backyard. Maybe Rita can speak to what is permitted in like a backyard like mine. I'm on a 200-foot lot in a subdivision, 50 feet wide. Very fortunate to have a good sized lot, but I do have 4 or 5 neighbors that abut to my side. I have about probably in my backyard 50 by 75 feet, which I would probably be able to put some certain size garage back there if I applied for it. And then I could probably go above and beyond that by going to community adjustments and getting it even bigger. Could you just speak to what is permitted and sizes that are permitted right now other than in living space? And I have a follow-up question on parking as well.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Guerin, I'm really glad you brought that up. So as it currently stands in the majority of the residential districts, you can have an accessory building, which is a detached garage of 750 square feet within 4 feet between that rear lot line and that side lot line. And that is limited to 1 story, but we do get applications at the Committee of Adjustment for, say, in addition to that garage, usually for storage, because we don't allow people to live in their garages. So the committee can't deal with it. But it may be the case that people come to the committee later and ask for that second story as well on their garage for a second dwelling unit.
So further that then, Rita, what is there still must be some sort of a calculation that we use, because my neighbor's backyards, for example, aren't as big as mine. There's literally maybe 20 feet deep to the fence line by 45, 50 feet wide. They would never be able to get that 750 square foot on that property. What is the calculation that is permitted?
Yep. So through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Guerin, that calculation would be your lot coverage. So I know we had a discussion at the public meeting about the actual square foot size of the building. And I noted that it would really be a matter of the lot coverage. So if the lot coverage is 40% in a residential district, you're going to have your main building, but you're also going to have that second dwelling unit to add on as well. So it's still confined to a certain size because you have to meet that 40% lot coverage.
Okay, so further to that, then the 40% I think is the concern, because if your home is built closer to your rear property line, yes, you're maybe under the 40%, but you really don't have room to put that 750 square foot in that space. You might be able to jam it in there and still have your 4 foot along its side of it, but I mean, not all homes are built in the middle of the property. So like I'm 200 deep, my house is maybe about 50 feet to the start of it and 40 feet to the back of it, but I still got all kinds of footage behind me. So I could see me putting up a secondary garage or something in a larger size, at least 750 square feet, but I couldn't see these other lots next to me being able to do the same thing. So we have to have a different calculation for those yards if the building is close to the back property line. But right now what you're saying is it's based just on what size home is on your property total, right?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
So I think that's going to be our concern for sure. We need to take a better look at that. I think where it permits in a residential area, what we're trying to do to add some housing and solve a problem, I think it's good. But I think it's not going to be in every case. And now on the parking, through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can, just a question with an added dwelling in, say, someone's backyard. Do they necessarily have to provide them their own specific driveway, or can it just be a space in a shared driveway?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Guerin on that, it can be tandem parking, so it doesn't have to be its own separate driveway.
Okay.
It's a separate space.
Yeah. So there's my other problem that I have, because I think a lot of people right now, driveway space in most cases is difficult to come by. If you got a family with 2 teenagers with licenses, they could possibly be 4 spots and maxed. And who's going to patrol this second unit with another family of 2 people, giving them a dedicated spot? Who's parking on the road, who isn't? So I don't think there's anything you can do about it, but it is an issue that will come up. So thanks, Rita. It's a good report.
Thank you. Ava, if you're there, did you want to speak?
Yeah, through the chair, I had a few questions just about this. So I wanted to just clarify this. If, say, your property is zoned as agricultural, you live on 50 acres, 40 of it is zoned agricultural, but you live residential on 10. Does this allow, say, my family to build a second house for, like, for example, for myself, would this allow them to build a second dwelling on the back of the property?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So yes, in a residential and an agricultural area, you can build a second dwelling unit and a detached structure, but you're limited to only 2 buildings. So even though you might have that split zoning on certain properties, you can't have 4 dwellings. So you're limited to 2, but you can definitely have it in a detached structure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you were next, then Councillor Vandendal. Deputy Mayor?
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear my name. So the question I would have to Rita then is, out of Ava's question is, If you have 4 buildings on your property, you could convert one of them into a second dwelling unit though.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Nolan, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, throughout this discussion, I haven't heard one mention of the terrible housing crisis we're in, and which is the reason why the province brought in this this new set of regulations and why they're forcing municipalities to try and allow people to create more housing. That is the overarching issue. Are some people not going to like the outcome? Well, probably. Some people are going to be upset, for sure. They always are. But the crisis is that we haven't got enough housing. And we have to use almost any means necessary to create some. I'm almost certain that 80% of these secondary units are going to be within the houses we already have. And I bet half the remaining 20% will be garage conversions. So you're not going to be seeing a new building in the backyard behind you. You're probably going to see a garage converted to a large studio apartment. And almost all of these, I think, will be looking after our elderly. And because of the other thing going on right now, nobody wants to put them in a home anymore. So we've got a bunch of problems we have to solve here. We can't just turn our backs on this by saying, well, somebody might not like it, so we can't do it. I disagree with that. And I think we have to try this. We have to accept the fact that there may be some people upset. I know that administration will be keeping a close eye on this, and we'll bring any attempted egregious offenders to our notice, and we can block that. And if anyone tries to pull a fast one on us, then we can head them off the pass. But it sounds as though the rest of council wants to block this and block new housing, which is crazy. We can't do that. We need the housing. There's a crisis out there, and it's our duty to try and help solve this. The tool has been put in our hands to help solve this, and we have to help make this work. Thank you.
Councillor Van, I agree with what you're saying. I do agree with what you're saying. We need housing. There's no question about it. But I'm going to go back to Councillor Bjorkman's concern. And I have that same concern. If I live in a subdivision and there's a home that goes up in my backyard or the neighbor's backyard, let's put it that way, in the neighbor's backyard, and I live and the neighbor on the other side has a home go in his backyard. What is the value of my home going to be when that happens? I agree, we need housing, and I support that. But I think that the building's got to be put in place where it makes more sense. If you put it in the backyard of a subdivision, I'm telling you, the neighbor's going to lose a tremendous amount of value with their home. So I think Councillor Bjorkman, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Yes, I agree. I'm not against building. I'm saying let's really talk about where we're building. Let's really talk about making sure that all of this fits our residents and fits our neighborhoods. Keeping the second dwelling close to the initial dwelling and leaving as much of the backyard as possible, to me, just makes sense. And then there are areas, Ms. Jabour has done a good job of creating this document so that there are places, there won't be anymore. They've already got 40% coverage. If you've only got a 60-foot deep lot that's 30 feet wide or 40 feet wide, you're not building anything. You're going to put that apartment in the basement. There just isn't room. So there are protections there. My concern is, where on the property do we allow people to build? And I think we should keep it close to the building that's already there. And then the tools are still there to go for site-specific zoning. You can still go to the council and the committee to, say your piece and try to get things worked out the way you can at your house. So I'm 100% in favor. We need to build. We need to find ways to put more people into homes, and especially for families. I got a couple of kids that are looking for homes. We're all into that age. Our parents are looking for places. So that's what we have to do. But we have to be careful with how we do it, and we're not going to run over people doing it. This is a good conversation. And if it doesn't get done tonight, that's not going to end the world either. We can go back and revisit this and do the things that we need to do to make sure that we're comfortable and our residents are comfortable with the rules we're making. So it's good discussion. I'm glad to hear it keep going. And but I want to be clear. I understand this housing problem. It needs to be addressed. We need to address it, but we need to do it thoughtfully. Thank you.
Who was next? I think Councillor Bondi, I think you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand that comments from the public come up all the time, right? Like when you start discussing this, it takes a while to trickle out to the general public so they have comments. But I feel really comfortable that we did a lot of public engagement on this file. And I do agree with Councillor Vanderdolen. We are in a housing crisis. And I think a lot of what the concerns we're hearing can be dealt with site plan control and other tools in our toolbox, right? For example, if I was going to put a tinier home in my backyard, I wouldn't want it. Maybe there's no windows facing my neighbors. The windows have to face my house, right? I think our administration can deal with that. And I think also if this happens, if we approve it in a couple, in a meeting or so, and in a year we get 1,000 tiny homes or 1,000 secondary dwelling units, then we hit the brakes. I think, can we hit the brakes after? We probably can, right? Or we can change the specs. But what I've heard right now and what has been really unfair is secondary dwelling units were allowed in urban areas and then not allowed in rural areas, right? So that felt really unfair, right? The properties that had the space weren't allowed to do them. And building is expensive. Building these is going to be expensive. I don't think we're going to see hundreds and thousands where it's alarming. I think if we get 10 to 15 a year, I think that's great. And I think we have to address it. Everybody knows, right, that we have to address it. So I think there's maybe our administration can talk about tools that we have so we can all make this happen.
Or Darren, you were next.
See, Mr. Mayor, yeah, I don't know if we touched on this, but what's the, talked about 4 feet from lot lines. What's the minimum between the dwellings? So the back of my home and the next dwelling I'm going to build?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's 6 feet.
Okay, so just further that then, I was just doing some math here, and I agree with Councillor Bondi. I mean, the rural area, a little different than, I'm speaking about urban, and I think so is Councillor Bjorkman probably, talking about these urban subdivisions that I believe we can allow this, we can get there. I just think we need to listen and hear what an administration has for tools that they have to work with, and just common sense, I think, just before we just go ahead and say, just go ahead and build what you want. Yeah, I mean, like I say, if the homes are pushed back further on the property from the front property lines, that's where we're going to run into some problems. Even if it can fit on there, it's just gonna look ugly for the neighbors.
I agree. Rita, believe me, okay, I'm in favor of housing, and all the council here is in agreement that we do need housing. But I think we got to go back to the table here and look at this again, okay? Because I'm telling you, and I'm going to tell council, we're going to run into a big problem here. If we're allowing people to build a home in a subdivision in their backyard with neighbors on both sides, okay? Let's say one neighbor and a house on both sides. I don't think anybody sitting on council here would like that. I really don't. So it's up to council, but if they want to approve this tonight, they can go ahead and approve it, but I'm not in favor of it. I'm in favor of housing, but not that type of housing in a subdivision in the backyard. Go ahead, Rita.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify that we're only approving the bylaw to add those policies to our official plan, not the zoning bylaw regulations. So the zoning bylaw regulations, I made them draft because I wanted to have a discussion, because I know there was a lot of concern about, lots that are undersized and dwelling units and detached structures. So this is good. This is what I want to hear. I can take this back and I can draft up some new regulations for you, but I just want to confirm that tonight we're not making any decision on the actual regulations. Obviously, you're going to give me some direction to come back with a bylaw at the next meeting, but the only item we are seeking to adopt is the bylaw to add the policies to our official plan.
Okay, thank you, Rita. I understand that. Okay. So any other questions from council? So we know it's all about a second dwelling. So, but you're going to come back with recommendations. So anyways, if there's no further,
Through me,
Lori, did
Mr.
you
Mayor.
have something? Go ahead, Lori.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Through you to council, I was just going to echo what Rita was indicating, and this is really the reason why my hand was up. Tonight, we are asking council to approve an official plan amendment to allow second dwelling units detached in agricultural districts and to keep things aligned with the provincial policy statement. As a municipality in Ontario, we are obligated and mandated to provide for detached second dwelling units in agricultural districts. So this is why we're here tonight, one step at a time. Yes, we have gone through to the public seeking consultation in the form of a survey. We have done our due diligence in getting that word out through notices as well as through social media. We had a public meeting and we heard from council on some of the issues. A lot of the issues that we're hearing again tonight are related to zoning regulations. This is not something that we're asking council to pass tonight. As seen in the report in Schedule B, that is what's being proposed. We can certainly, as Rita indicated, go back to the drawing table. Nonetheless, we weren't asking council for approval on the zoning regulations tonight. We have lots of food for thought in terms of the regulations to reconsider, and we'll bring those back to council once we get an official plan amendment approved by the authority being the county. So the county needs to allow us to proceed with regulations for second dwelling units in agricultural districts as well as in residential districts. So again, it's really one step at a time. So we thank you for your comments tonight. But going back to the report, going back to public consultation and back to the recommendations in our report, we are seeking council support in the OPA.
Thank you, Rita. Okay, and I got a clearer understanding here because it was getting carried away here. But no, I agree with what you're saying there. So council, I'm going to need a motion to receive and move the recommendation. I need a mover, Councillor Bowman, seconder, Councillor Van Nodo. Ava, Ava?
Yeah, I just had something I wanted to add before we moved on.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that I'm hoping that when we do, we consider the regulations, I was hoping that you would consider the fact that the size of the second dwelling unit should be relative to the property size, because I feel like someone who has, say, a 1 acre backyard should be able to build a big house right in their neighbor, like, blocking all the neighbors' backyards, whereas someone with 10 acres of property should be able to build like a regular size house that somebody could actually live in and have a growing family in. And I just think that should be something that should be considered in the regulations for the bylaw. Thank you.
So we already had the motion, so Rita cannot, or Lori cannot speak on it. So, okay, I think Rita listened to that. You got that information, right? Okay. So in that case, then I'll all in favor of the motion here? It's carried. Thank you. Great discussion. And Rita, like I say, we're all in favor of housing. You know that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 10 this evening, reports from youth members, and I believe both are youth council members are here this evening, Ms. Marsenko and Ms. Hoffman.
Anything from the youth council here tonight?
Thank you,
Edwa?
Mr. Mayor. Nothing from myself tonight.
Okay. And Ava?
Nothing from myself tonight either.
Okay, thank you.
Item 11, Mr. Mayor, any updates from?
The only thing I can say I brought forward, I said at the last council meeting, we had the two intersections, we had two fatalities there, and I just want to let council know, I did bring it forward. And I think Deputy Mayor Malash, if he wants to add to this, they do not use rumble strips anymore because of the noise. But it was already on the radar for the intersection at Arner Town Line and County Road 20. They're already looking at that one, and they're going to look at the intersection of 15 and 18 because of the two fatalities with flashing lights. So other than that, I really haven't got anything else. The only thing I can announce that that this wasn't brought up, but I know the county EMS is involved now in bringing patients from Toronto, believe it or not. The hospitals are full, okay, of serious cases of COVID, and they're bringing them to us down here because the hospitals are full. So that's what I have from the county. Deputy Mayor Malash, did you have anything?
Yes,
Go
through
ahead.
you, Your Worship. Just want to talk a little bit about Wednesday night's meeting coming up. We've got a report on there for regional insurance study. It's something that really I've been one of the people that have been pushing for that. We've had a lot of issues with trying to get insurance in various smaller municipalities, and very costly. And there's been municipalities here in Ontario that have had shell shock with the prices that they're being charged. And so kind of what we're looking at here is an all-encompassing insurance policy that would take the need from each community to negotiate with the insurance company. We'd have a bigger pull because there'd be basically 8 or 9 communities that are looking, the county itself, and then each of the 7 municipalities. And I'm not sure if they're going to include Peely Island, but there's a chance Peely Island may be included in this as well. We'll find out Wednesday night. But it's something I think that is really something that we need to look at going forward. If we had if the county was doing this, we could afford with the gains that we would make, or the savings that we would have, we could potentially afford to hire somebody that would be an insurance specialist that would look at this and oversee the whole insurance policy. So in any case, that's something that County Council is looking at, and I think that was the most important and probably the item that will be most talked about on Wednesday night coming up. Thanks.
And if you can just add to that, and it was, we spoke to on the size of each municipality too, and the cost combined. So thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Item 12.1, that all of the correspondence listed in 12.1 be received and where indicated to further share such information. And I note through you, Mr. Mayor, that the correspondence from the town of Amherstburg on universal paid sick days has been moved over to receipt and support.
Okay, Council. So for the rest of the correspondence here, I'll need a motion to receive it. Deputy Mayor Malash and Councillor Bowman, any question on any of these? And we had the one, which one was it again? Which number to receive? And
12.1.1.3, we've moved that over to the second piece for receipt and support.
Okay, great. So all in favor of the correspondence? Carried. Thank you.
.2.1 is correspondence from the County of Essex, Essex Windsor Emergency Medical Services, paramedic recognition banners, that the said correspondence requesting that temporary banners be hung for the period of May 16th to June 6th in support of Paramedic Services Week be received and supported. And if so supported, that administration send a letter of no objection to EOA in support of those temporary banners.
Motion to support this. Councillor Bjorkman, seconder. Councillor Bowman, any questions? All in favor? It's carried.
As added to the agenda as 12.2.2 is correspondence from the town of Amherstburg, in which a motion was passed that administration be directed to send a letter of support regarding the city of request for permanent universal paid sick days for all workers in Ontario during the pandemic and beyond. That said correspondence be received and supported, and if so supported, that the appropriate report be sent.
So I need a motion, receive and support. Councillor Verbeek and Councillor Bondi. Any questions? Councillor Bowman, you had a question. Go ahead.
I won't be supporting this because this is basically throwing a huge cost onto all the small businesses out there that will be forced to pay for this cost of sick days for all their employees. There's no, mechanism for funding on this. It's just a cost that's being thrown back on the various businesses or corporations, whatever it happens to be. I don't think it's well thought out. I can see where it's coming from because of people going to work because of the COVID. But this says during the COVID and after, and we put this in, it's going to be in there forever. And I just can't see that being a realistic something that can carry on, because if I don't feel like going to work today, I might as well stay home and get paid. That's not a real good solution to the problem, and so I won't support it.
Dolan?
I agree with Councillor Bowman.
Yes, I do too. I agree with Councillor Bowman also. Councillor Verbeek, go ahead.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Clearly, we're going to disagree on this one, though, because that's why I asked that we do a support, that we send a letter to support St. Catharines, the town of Amherstburg, so many other municipalities, all kinds of healthcare workers, our nurses, our doctors, education workers, all asking for this. Our PSWs, our grocery store workers, and our manufacturing workers are all just some of them that are being forced to go into work a little unwell, not sure if they have COVID or the flu, which we don't want to spread around as well. Now, I understand that clearly one of the arguments is going to be that there is a federal program in place, but if anybody's looked into it, they're the ones that need it aren't using it, because it's kind of like half measures, and you have to have like your doctor and your employer and everybody involved with it, and you're going to work while you're not feeling well. Just a quick little tale about a woman that's local that some of us may or may not know, but she is a friend. Her kids had COVID. She had to go to work because she wasn't feeling well until she tested negative, which, as we know, takes a couple of days. Her parents had to come and watch her kids while she went to work because she couldn't afford not to go to work. She got COVID, her kids got COVID, her parents, and who knows who at work got it while she was waiting for those results. She would have happily stayed home waiting for those test results. She couldn't afford it. And that's why so many groups across the province are pushing for this. It doesn't even provide minimum wage. it just helps these people that are already stretched to the max feel comfortable staying home for a couple of days. And it's pretty much, you might remember shortly after this current government got elected, they nixed those 3 sick days that would have probably helped many of these low-income families get through these things. When their kids come home with COVID from school, I got a positive test. Well, I can't help it. I'm a PSW. I got to get to work at the nursing home or the grocery store because there's no other avenue for them. This is a safety net for our most vulnerable families. I don't understand. Like I say, this is a small list of all the organizations, nurses and doctors, of course, PSWs and grocery store workers. All of these are pleading for us to back them up. And tonight we're just asked to, back up and send a letter of support to that, our town of Amherstburg and St. Catharines and a lot of other municipalities are doing too. All right, is it going to fall on deaf ears? Most likely, but at least we show that we're willing to support all these people in our community that are asking us to step up. I mean, they have to go to work because if you look through if you talk to anybody that's tried to use the federal program, it's not made. It's if you get positive on COVID and you have to take several weeks off, then you can apply for it and you have to wait 6+ weeks for it. Sure, but she may have just had a fever and she would have found out in 3 days. But no, in fact, she had been infected by her children, and who knows how many people at work she infected as well. So our numbers keep going up because we're not taking the steps. And this has been a proven step that would help if people could afford to stay home for a few days. The tests are rapid. I'm doing them all the time at Euler now. That's why I support it. And I hope the rest of council will. It's a letter to support our communities and our hardworking residents in the community asking for this.
Thank you, Councillor. I do agree. I do agree that right now we're in a pandemic right now. But I do agree with Councillor Bowman. If this ever gets through, as a Chrysler worker, I worked at Chrysler for 10 years. As a Chrysler worker, I can say one day, well, I'm not going to work today. I don't feel like going to work. And I know when I worked at Chrysler, there was some extremely hot days where I didn't go to work. So now I can say, well, I'm going to get paid for the day anyways. I'm just going to say I'm sick. So going back to what Councillor Bowman said, this will really hurt the small businesses. This really will. The small businesses are struggling today, and a lot of them are going to close up because of this pandemic. Okay. And now to add this, if we support this, and if this ever gets approved, it would kill the businesses. So no, I'm sorry, I can't support it myself. So I'll leave it at that. Anybody else from Deputy Mayor Malash, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in the same position. I think this would really kill small businesses at a time where they're already not having the ability to rake in the monies that they have in the past. I think if there were more explanation as to where the funding would come, I'd be able to support it. But at this point in time, I can't support something that doesn't say that it's not going to be on the backs of small business. So I think you'll probably see something come out of this, because I believe there's studies that are going on right now about this, different things that I've read in social media and in the news. So hopefully the government's going to come out with something, because of what's happened through COVID. And, you just need people to keep pushing the idea. And, but until I see where the money's coming from, I'm with Councillor Bowman on this one. I can't support it.
So, Councillor Bondi, did you have something to say?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm pretty, I don't know. I would like to see our council support it. So I'd like to see a recorded vote, actually. Like, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we have many single parent families who go to work in minimum wage jobs, I certainly don't want somebody at a fast food place making my hamburger when they're sick and not feeling well. And if it costs the business a little bit of money, you can't say that this is, oh, you're not in favor of small business because you want employees to have sick days. You can't do that. You can't want sick days and say, oh, well, you're hurting small business. No, this is about being responsible and pushing for basic standards. And to say that it's going to go in and stay in forever, the Wynne government raised the employment standards, and then the Ford government took it right away. And I'm lucky enough to have a job that pays me sick time, and thank goodness I have that, but not everybody has that. In these jobs, the people in these fast food places have, they're essential as well. And some of them like working there, and that's a good job for them. And if they're feeling sick, they should get 2 or 3 days a year, whatever that is at a minimum. Like, I feel like we haven't learned a lesson that we're in a pandemic. Like, we have no problem here saying, okay, no, go to work sick, because people need to afford to live, because affordability is a huge problem right now. And if, you could say that if you don't support sick days, or if you support sick days, you're anti-small business. But if you don't support sick days, you're anti-affordability for a lot of low-income families. So with that being said, Mr. Mayor, thank you to the town of Amherstburg for supporting this. And I would like a recorded vote on this when the time comes. Thank you.
Go ahead, Rob, recorded vote.
On the stated motion that the town of
Sorry,
Right.
our youth rep has our.
I believe I get last word because that was my motion.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to state that everybody here was sharing valid points, but the proposal is a plan to have the province support the businesses in these sick days to get through this. And as Councillor Bondi pointed out, every time we change government, this can be changed. It's not written in stone. But today, at this time, I don't think the concern needs to be whether or not Chrysler has to pay someone because it's too hot to go to work, or whether or not we might be hurting some small business because their cashier can't come in. Because guess what? The proposal is for the province to help those businesses be able to pay people to stay home. The province doesn't want to help pay for those people to stay home. It's why there's so much backlash, and it's not happening because they don't want to have to put the money out there to help these small businesses pay people to stay home. So instead we have daycare workers going to work with COVID because they cannot afford to stay home. And we have people going to the nursing home and making food for the seniors who are vaccinated, and hell hopes, like, let's hope that those vaccines last long enough. And we have people going into our manufacturing plants and our grocery store workers. If my daughter is sick and she's going to, and she can't afford to stay home, she's going to go to Foodland and serve customers with her mask on and hope that her symptoms aren't visible because she can't afford to stay home. However, if we pass this, her employee would be able to get support from the provincial government to help her stay home until, she clearly, if she gets a positive test, the federal program is going to kick in to help. This is to get through those few days where we have people going and working on the line and infecting 10 or 15 or 20 more and blowing our numbers up. And those numbers are what's dictating our lives right now. So anyway, I guess I'm feeling a little passionate about it because it feels like a no-brainer. I don't know why we're worried about Chrysler getting stung for a couple of hot days when it's our community and the numbers of COVID could be. We have big groups of doctors telling us that assisting people to stay home when they're not well with paid sick day, and it's not big chunks of money. It's enough so these people can just stay home until, to a few days and treat themselves and isolate. You can't even get any money from the feds unless you actually have a doctor or an employee's note that says you need to isolate for 14 days. And then you can wait 6 weeks or a couple of months for that to come in. we have too many people living us too close. Their belts are too tight already and they'll go to school, they'll go to work and they'll hide their sniffle or they'll take cough medicine and potentially infect a whole bunch more people. So that's why I'm strongly supporting.
Councillor Guerin, you're next, then we'll go to the recorded vote. Councillor Guerin.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I lost you there. Through you, yeah. So my concern with the sick days is how many sick days do we really expect the government to and the businesses to put out? You could use your sick days for legitimate concerns, not even COVID related. And then once the COVID comes up, you have no days to use, and we're back to square one. Putting it on the backs of the business owner, I'm not really in agreement with that neither. So it's a tough one to answer. We don't want our people going. We don't want people going into work sick. I'd rather the government come up with some type of plan where if you are sick and you feel you have symptoms of COVID, you go in and get tested, and then proof of that, maybe the government can help you out with from there. But to just put days in place so that anyone can just use them, and then if you already did use them, then we're back to square one. I can't wrap my head around it. I think it needs some more thought.
Ava, did you have something? Because I'm going to go to the recorded vote. Did you have something, Ava?
Yeah, I just had a question. I just didn't know if does this look at like the enterprise value of the business? Like, does this go for more corporations, small business, or is it equal for both?
Can I answer that?
Bjorkman, if you want to answer that, go ahead.
Yeah, the wording of the resolution says regardless of size or number of employees, they're looking for sick leave days for everyone.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, Rob, you want to go to the recorded vote? Councillor Bondi asked for a recorded vote.
Mayor, on the stated motion as moved by Councillor Verbeek, seconded by Councillor Bondi, that the town of Essex receive and support the town of Amherstburg's resolution in support of the city of St. Catharines' request for permanent universal paid sick days for all workers in Ontario during the pandemic and beyond, and that a letter of support be accordingly sent. On the requested recorded vote by Councillor Bondi, how do you vote?
Support.
Councillor Vanderdolen, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Councillor Bowman, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Mayor Snively, how do you vote? Deputy Mayor Milosh, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Councillor Guerin, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Councillor Verbeek, how do you vote?
Support.
And Councillor Bjorkman, how do you vote?
Support.
With a recorded vote of 3 in support and 5 opposed, the motion is defeated. Item 13 on this evening's agenda is committee meeting minutes. That all of the committee minutes listed therein in agenda item 13, together with any recommendations noted, be received, approved, and adopted as circulated.
Need a motion here, please, to approve the minutes. Councillor Bowman and Councillor Guerin, any questions? All in favor? Carried.
Item 16 on the agenda, the 16.1, the following notices of motion were first presented at the April 6th regular council meeting and are now being brought forward this evening for council. 16.1.1, as moved by Mayor Snively, that administration research and consult with local First Nations, Indigenous organizations, and other community champions on creating or developing a land acknowledgement statement for the town of Essex.
Rob, I'll just speak very quickly on this. I was asked to bring this forward And I just want to get council's opinion on this here. I'd like it to go back to administration, have administration come back with a report on this. So if there's any questions from council on this one here? You have a question, Councillor Verbeek, or are you?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment. I want to thank you very much for bringing this forward.
Are you going to move the recommendation to? Okay, I need a seconder then.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, you were the mover on that. Councillor Verbeek, the seconder.
Okay, yeah, she's the seconder. All in favor of that one? Carried.
16.1.2, also first presented at the April 6th regular council meeting, now being brought forward for council's consideration this evening, is a notice of motion from Councillor Bondi that Essex Council send a letter to Hydro One to let them know of the concerns we have in our municipality of frequent power outages that are negatively impacting both our residential homes and businesses, as moved by Councillor Bondi, and would require a second.
If I may speak on this, Councillor Bondi, before we go any further, you know, I've been in contact with Hydro One.
Point of order. We do need to have it seconded in order to talk about it at all.
Okay, I need a seconder then. Councillor Guerin. Okay. So Councillor Bondi, you know, I've got a hold of Hydro One already, and they guaranteed me within the next 2 weeks. Now, I heard this before. Within the next 2 weeks, they would meet with me and Deputy Mayor Malash and let us know what upgrades they're doing in the Kingsville area to bring service into our area. They know there's problems, and they're working on improvements on the power coming into our municipality. So I don't know if you want to back off with the letter because I've already spoke with them. Go ahead, Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's going to be up to council whether we back off on the letter. I would prefer to not back off on the letter. I think it's important that we have a tracking system with our correspondence with Hydro One. I do understand that you're working with them to get a meeting, but it's good to have the public discussion that we as council have heard about the numerous complaints, and we as council would like answers. Maybe if council collectively gives you a letter, that would, maybe make the meeting happen for sure. I have talked to Hydro One several times as well. I have a few contacts there now, and they've told me that they've done upgrades to the Leamington transfer station, and they're in the middle of doing upgrades to the Kingsville transfer station. It's in the middle. We're in like a 2-year out of 4-year upgrade. Is it, very detailed? Is the public really aware of what's going on? No. And when I get the information, it's kind of, it's in Hydro One. So it's kind of hard to understand, but I still would like this council to have on record a letter, because when the hydro goes out, whether it's in Elk territory or a Hydro One territory, it is nonstop for me. And I don't know, I'm sure it is for many other councillors, but it will take me away from my family for a long time. And I just want to have really good explanations and a really good history with this council of advocating on behalf. People point the finger at us. Like, I know it's a provincial issue and I know it's Hydro One, but at the end of the day, they're like, you got to do something. And I'm like, well, we're trying, but it's really not good enough. So if we have it recorded in our minutes, maybe that'll just help. So yes, and I would like a recorded vote on this as well, please.
Yeah, if I may, Councillor Bondi, I want to ask you a question. Why did you do a video in front of Elk about 2 or 3 weeks ago and put that on Facebook? I want to ask you that question. Why would you go to Elk and stand in front of Elk and put that out there? You got a lot of public upset about that, Councillor Bondi. I'm telling you, why did you do that? You threw Elk under the bus.
Point of order. If you're going to address this personally, pass the gavel, let somebody else chair.
Sure. I'll pass the gavel to the deputy mayor.
I've got it.
Okay, Councillor Bondi, I want to ask you why you went in front of Elk and bashed them, okay, and blamed Elk for a lot of the outages. And you did, and don't sit there and tell me you didn't, and then turn around here tonight and talk like that. You knew it was Hydro One. You knew it was their issue. Why did you do that, Counselor? I'm asking you. Can you explain that to the rest of the council? Can you
Yes,
please?
when
Go
you're done.
ahead. I'm done.
Okay, I will. So I believe at sometimes something happens in Elk territory and it pushes out something in Hydro One. And then Hydro One is blamed for outages. That not every time, but that has happened and does happen. I also have asked several times the board of directors of Elk what the value is of Elk. Our administration, nobody can answer that question. We own a utility. The town of Essex is the sole shareholder of Elk. And there are so many unanswered questions, and I can't get that answer. After 10 years of being on council, we don't know the value. That is very alarming because this is an asset that we own and we should have more answers. What is the asset management like? Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask you, what state is Elk's asset management in? And where can I find that report?
And let me put it this way, Councillor Bondi. You made a statement. You made this statement that Elks does not come in front of council. They haven't been in front. That was a false statement. They've been here a couple of times already. So if you're going to go out there and bash a corporation that we own, that the town of Essex owns this corporation, and you're out there bashing a corporation that we own. We own that corporate. And guess what? Guess what, Counselor? Guess what, Counselor? This is going to the Integrity Commissioner. I'm laying a complaint against you. And I'm going to send that video. That was pathetic on your part. And I'll leave it at that. Deputy Mayor, I'll take over now.
Passing the gavel.
Thanks. Anything else from council here? Go ahead, Councillor Van den Knoll.
Well, there seems to be some baggage here. As I believe I told council a couple of years ago, back in the 80s, I reported extensively on these issues in Windsor. And Hydro One is a gigantic monopoly that cannot be moved. And it could fight them and fight them. We do have to keep fighting them, but we shouldn't expect that we're going to fix this quickly. And we are among the smallest fish in the entire province as far as OPG and Hydro One go. I have lots of deep and very high level contacts in both those corporations, and we're up against a pretty hard struggle in trying to get these ancient, terrible circuits rebuilt, because there's nothing in it for them. But we should not be conflating ELK with hydro and how somebody feels about one with both. But that's what's muddying the whole situation here. We don't have a clean discussion or a clean argument because it's become so personalized between a couple of councillors. What we really want to do is to improve service, but you're not going to do by screaming at Hydro One when there's a car accident that takes out a pole, and that supposedly is ELK's fault. ELK's fault. That weakens our argument, and I think we're in a weak position because of the way we're arguing this publicly, and that's really too bad. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Verbeek, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, and I agree with a couple of Councillor Van der Molen's statements. Arguing this bookly as we can, I believe, but I think that like the whole personal issue right now is got to be put aside, and we look at this like I saw this motion and thought, yeah, because we are the little fish, is it going to be really effective? Probably not. Do our residents want to see us send this kind of letter? Absolutely. It's us making an effort. Will anything come of it? I mean, who knows? But at least it's, it's a paper trail. It's us as a team, as a council, representing our constituents, addressing Hydro One and saying, yeah, we have concerns on behalf of our people, our residents, and see what they respond. It's a simple, it's a letter on behalf of our constituents. To me, it seemed like a no-brainer, and then it just got really messy because of personal things. So yeah, I'll be supporting sending a letter. It's a letter on behalf of our residents that do want answers.
Counselor, anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, there was a recorded vote requested on the stated motion as moved by Councillor Bondi, seconded by Councillor Guerin, that Essex County send a letter to Hydro One to let them know of the concerns we have in our municipality of frequent power outages that are negatively impacting both our resident homes and businesses. As the requester, Councillor Bondi, how do you vote?
Support.
Councillor Vanderdolen, how do you vote?
Support.
Councillor Bowman, how do you vote?
I'll support.
Mayor Snively, how do you vote? Deputy Mayor Meloche, how do you vote?
Support.
Councillor Guerin, how do you vote?
Support.
Councillor Verbeek, how do you vote?
Support.
And Councillor Bjorkman, how do you vote?
Support.
With a recorded vote of 7 in support and none opposed, the motion carries. For you, Mr. Mayor, 8. Yes.
Deputy Mayor Meloche, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, is there any, do we have an address that do we know who to send that to? Do we have the proper person to send it to? And I'm just wondering if that letter might be a good tool for us to pass off when we finally do have this meeting.
That's a good point, Deputy Mayor. You know what? We'll make sure we have the right person that letter goes to, and I'll get that information. I think I could probably get that from Mark.
Okay, and then bring a copy with us when we have that meeting.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, 16.2, the following notices of motion are being presented only this evening and will be brought forward for council's consideration at the May 3rd regular council meeting. The first notice of motion from Mayor Snively recognizing significant dates, that the Town of Essex Council recognize significant dates as part of its council meetings, such as special milestone anniversaries and birthdays for members in our community. The second notice of motion, as added during publication this evening, and added as 16.2.2 from Councillor Verbeek, that when permits are issued in accordance with bylaw 1799, referred to as the Phil bylaw, that such permits only be extended or renewed once after the initial permit, so as to limit the negative impact the ongoing extensions are having on community residents and roadways. And then the last notice of motion, again, just for presentment, this only will be back to the May 3rd meeting, as added as 16.2.3 from Councillor Verbeek, that a secondary plan be created for McGregor, similar to those issued in Essex Center, Harrell, and Colchester South, and as indicated in the strategic plan for this term of council. Any reports and announcements from the council members?
Councillor Bowman, you have anything? No. Councillor Bondi, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is presently an Earth Day challenge. It's on my social media, and it's we even got some people in Cottam taking place. So we're asking people alone, together, you're doing it alone, but we're all doing it together, to clean up garbage and then add the hashtag pitch in Earth Day, and to enter to win a couple of gift certificates from local businesses. And it's kind of taking it's taking its root. So pretty happy about that. It is Earth Day coming up, and there is so much garbage. I don't know why there's so much garbage around this town. We had cleanups through Doug's department. We organized cleanups before, and we got to the point where there wasn't really much to clean up, but there is so much to clean up. I don't know if it's people's recycle bins blowing over, people home littering. I'm not sure, but I know you were on CBC, Mr. Mayor, talking about the water bottles. So if we could do some public education as a town, like, do not litter. It's so disgusting, and it's so irresponsible. Like, I don't know why somebody would ever think it's okay to throw something out their window, but they're doing it all over the place, and it's gross. So if any council members want to take part, we'd love to have you too. Thank you.
Councillor Verbeek, do you have anything?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I missed my opportunity to comment on one of the committee's minutes because I was taken off stride when I lost my focus when we got, focused in on potential cheaters instead of supporting an initiative that could possibly stop or slow the spread of COVID. Then we focused on cheaters. So I lost my stride, and I did not comment on minutes from the Heritage Committee, where they point out that the virtual tour of our McGregor St. Clement's Church was the most viewed. And I highly recommend. It's a beautiful church. It's a beautiful video. Take a couple of minutes, just go and watch it and enjoy the work that this committee has put into these. As far as I wanted to mention that, and I do appreciate that you did go on and talk about that, Mr. Mayor, because 2 years ago when I was doing the community cleanup, Councillor Leo Malash and myself were given the route down Walker Road. This was led up by our deputy mayor, and we were given a down County Road 12, and our town staff were picking up the garbage bags. We filled 12 garbage bags, and down that road, the amount of empty liquor, Mickeys and bottles and beer cans was pretty disgusting, but the filled bottles of pee were just like bags full. It was disgusting. I had no idea. And that was the concession heading out of McGregor. So yeah, it's something we do have to start talking about and trying to fix or prevent, because it's really gross.
Thank you for that, Council. I'm recommending that if any council member sees somebody littering, please take down the plate number and report them, because that's pathetic. And I agree, like, you go down the road and open up your window and throw out a coffee cup. You can go down any concession anywhere outside Harrow or Essex, and you'll see thousands of them. It's pathetic that you can't hold that glass or that cup in your vehicle until you get home. Really? Is this the type of person you are? And you heard what I said on CBC. Anyways, Deputy Mayor Malash, do you have anything? Nothing. Councillor Bjorkman. Councillor Guerin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple things. One's not going to be really any great news to anybody, but officially the Essex 73 season came to an end this week when the Provincial Junior Hockey League announced that it was going to be canceling the season. It's unfortunate, first time ever that a junior hockey season. So Essex 73 has been around since 1973, and this will be the first year that they won't be competing for the Schmaltz Cup. The second thing I wanted to mention publicly was that this week the Fun Fest committee will be meeting to discuss the fate of this year's festival. So I hope to have an update for the public and for council after that meeting as to where the direction of the committee is going to be with respect to the festival.
Mm-hmm. And Dolan, do you have anything?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I've been asked by a lot of people. Well, it's day 15 for me for suffering from COVID, the disease whose source we cannot discuss. But a lot of people have asked me what it's been like. And when I made a tweet a couple of weeks ago that got me in such trouble, I was hoping to perform a public service and tell people what it was like. And my first 3 days experience was, this was nothing, man. And I'd worked through worse flus than that at the Windsor Star. I go to work and work 12 hours. It was that inconsequential, I thought. I was sleeping a lot, but it certainly wasn't hard to carry. And then I felt pretty good for a few days. And then it dragged me back down. And that's why people cannot make light of this disease. You know, it got scary. I lost 12 pounds, which is the most weight I've lost in 40 years since I had a severe food poisoning back in the early 80s. I wasn't able to eat for 10 days. I could not lift my head off the pillow for many days. It was scary. I had to try to go to sleep with a feeling of a fist squeezing my bronchial tubes. Even though I could breathe, I could just imagine what sends people to the ICUs and onto the ventilators. It must be just god awful, terrifying. I feel so terribly for them. And in light of that, I just think that maybe this council should rethink a bit when it starts squalling that the provincial government are all idiots and they should let us all out. I mean, we've been hearing how many meetings this council's been saying, you know, let us out, let us out. And then tonight, well, no, we have to have free sick days because everyone's going to be sick if they go to work. Maybe we should just let the professionals handle this and we should take their advice. And those of us who know we're at risk, we should stay home and look after each other. Thanks.
I haven't got anything, so go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor. Moving on to bylaws. 18.1, bylaws for third and final reading. Bylaw 2007 to confirm the proceedings from the April 6th regular council meeting.
It's carried. Thank you.
Bylaw 1988, also for third reading, being a bylaw to provide for the 13th concession West Drain.
Have a mover on this one, please. Councillor Bjorkman and Councillor Guerin. All in favor? Carried.
18.2, bylaws for first, second, third, and final reading. Bylaw 2008, being a bylaw to amend the noted bylaws authorizing drainage works.
Need a mover, please. Councillor Bowman and Councillor Bjorkman. All in favor? Carried.
Bylaw 2010 being a bylaw to establish tax rates and additional charges for municipal, county, and education purposes for the year 2021.
Have a mover, please. Councillor Guerin and Councillor Bowman. All in favor? Carried.
Bylaw 2014 being a bylaw to appoint a deputy fire chief for the town of Essex.
Have a mover, please. Councillor Bondi and Councillor Vanendel. All in favor? Carried.
And for two readings this evening, Mr. Mayor, is bylaw 2015 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of this April 19th regular council meeting.
Mover, please. Councillor Bjorkman and Councillor Guerin. All in favor? Carried. I need a mover to adjourn, please. Deputy Mayor Malash and Councillor Verbeek.